Well, let's talk about two things, or three things maybe. I want to know what you see happening on the government policy side. You were at the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas. There were political figures there. Pierre Poilievre in Canada has indicated some interest in Bitcoin. Nigel Farage in the UK. Trump in the United States. I'm wondering what you think is going to happen at the state level in relationship to Bitcoin. They haven't made it illegal, for example, so that's a good thing. And I know that countries that have tried to go to war, so to speak, with Bitcoin have seen damaging consequences for their currency, which I think is extremely interesting and telling. Then I'd like to know what you see for the future in relationship to Bitcoin, let's say over a 5 or 10 year period. And I'd like to know what your advice would be for young people, practically speaking, in relationship to ensuring their financial future.
All great questions. I think the last 10 months have been extraordinary for Bitcoin and the entire crypto ecosystem. An inflection point was in Nashville last July when Donald Trump, the presidential candidate, showed up, gave a speech, embraced Bitcoin, embraced the community, told everybody that if he was elected, the United States government would never sell their Bitcoin.
Never sell your Bitcoin. And so, as the final part of my plan today, I am announcing that if I am elected, it will be the policy of my administration, United States of America, to keep 100% of all the Bitcoin the U.S. government currently holds or acquires into the future. We'll keep 100%. I hope you do well, please. This will serve in effect as the core of the strategic national Bitcoin stockpile.
And in essence, endorse it as apex property and legitimate property that he respected. The entire crypto industry and the Bitcoin community were extremely active, and there are a lot of people that think that they tipped the election in favor of the red sweep. They were definitely very significant actors in November. And so November 5th, there was a red sweep. The House, the Senate, and the White House went Republican. What followed next is an orange cabinet. And orange is the color of Bitcoin. I'm wearing an orange tie. What that means is Robert F. Kennedy is a Bitcoin believer. Tulsi Gabbard in intelligence is a Bitcoin believer. Atkins at the SEC is a Bitcoin believer. Scott Bessent at the Treasury is a Bitcoin believer. Brian Contez at CFTC is a Bitcoin believer. The president is a Bitcoin believer. He created a cabinet position for David Sachs as the crypto czar, who's a Bitcoin believer. And so what you saw was the administration flipped from being, I would say before this administration, they grudgingly accepted Bitcoin and were hostile to everything else. And Bitcoin was accepted under protest because they couldn't stop it. And then after November 5th, the administration moved aggressively. They established an executive order to develop a digital assets policy.
When was that executive order?
I guess it must have come
sometime in the last 100 days, I guess, thereabouts.
It came in the first quarter.
Yeah, okay.
And they established a strategic Bitcoin reserve, okay? And the most important thing that happened is David Sachs went on public record saying the Trump administration recognizes Bitcoin as the one decentralized crypto network in the world, an asset without an issuer, digital gold, a commodity, special. That's very, very important unlock. A commodity, an asset without an issuer has legal superiority, ethical superiority. A public company can capitalize on a commodity. Under the SEC 40 Act, a public company cannot capitalize on securities. You can't have more than 40% of your balance sheet invested in securities. So a commodity means it's like soybeans or gold or land, and no one actor can manipulate it, and that makes it global property. So that only happened just in the past few months. But what's happened since is you could say the United States has gone from being very regressive to being the most progressive digital assets nation in the world. And the agenda of the United States is is to normalize the use of digital currencies, digital tokens, digital securities, and digital commodities on digital exchanges trading 24/7.
And that'll be Bitcoin based.
Yeah.
Do you think that
And Bitcoin is the base layer. It is
Right.
the reserve asset or the capital base of the entire crypto economy.
Okay, when these other when other jurisdictions are speaking, I'm thinking about the WEF types in particular, when they're speaking about digital, central bank digital currencies, they're generally not thinking about, they're not proposing that that's going to be founded on a Bitcoin standard.
That is viewed as anathema by the crypto community.
Yeah.
But here we get to this basic philosophical observation, which is, do I want all of the money and power in the world to be controlled centrally by one banker or one politician who will then decide what I can buy, what I can do, what I can think?
Yeah, that sounds like a bad idea.
Or do I want all of the money and the power of the world to be held by individuals apart from a corporation or a bank or a government where they have privacy, where they have sovereignty, where they have dignity, where they have power, My author Heinlein, he said, an armed society is a polite society, right?
Yeah.
And the idea is, 100 people have guns in the room, and you watch your step, and you show civility. Well, the significance of Bitcoin is, for the first time in the history of the human race, we have found a way to tightly bind economic energy to the individual, cryptographically bind it. If you know a secret in your head, it could be $1 billion of power. Thinking about fantasy, I know it, I can cast $1 billion spell. It's profound. If you want to go back 100 million years, the big breakthrough for mammals was when they could bind organic energy to their frame, and we call that fat, right? If you have fat cells, you can eat a lot and go without food for 30 days. Take away the fat, you're a type 1 diabetic. You last a few days, you're dead. And so this idea that I can bind organic energy is what makes human beings. This idea that I could bind cryptographically bind economic energy, that gives sovereignty to the individual. But you know what? 8 billion people could have their own energy, but also 400 million companies. And the traditional central banking system of the CBDC and fiat currency is there's one bank, the U.S. Reserve, that controls everybody, and then there's 100 big banks. And if they give you permission, you're allowed to do stuff, and if they take away your permission, you can't. I think the Trump family ran into that when they got debanked. All the crypto people ran into it. There was the Canadian trucker example.
Oh, God.
You do something we don't like, we turn off your oxygen. And
no court intervention whatsoever, right? No trial, nothing. Yeah.
And
terrible.
if you look at the history of Austrians, they all lamented that the money is broken, and that is the source of so many of our economic ills. And if you look at the history of libertarians, they say government intervention, government policy and medicine and commerce and foreign policy and domestic policy and monetary policy and education policy is generally counterproductive, iatrogenic. It does more harm than good. They both understood the problem. They both had a philosophy: less government, more civil liberties, more economic liberties, more freedom. We took a shot at that in the United States during the Revolutionary War, and we did it with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. We found out in 2020 that sometimes your rights get suspended because they're inconvenient to someone with more power than you. But the truth is, your civil rights have been suspended every 30 years for the last 30,000 years by someone, and that's the story of civilization. Rights being suspended for the normal by the more powerful. The crypto revolution and the Bitcoin ethos is Satoshi found a way to give power back to the people by combining cryptography with semiconductors with the internet.